What's good, everybody? It's TJ back for another episode of the TJ Martino podcast, episode 2. First of all, I want to thank everybody for showing love and showing support on social media to me and reaching out to me and telling me that they're happy that I'm doing this. So shout out to you people. I'm happy I'm doing it too, I guess. Just keep spreading the word, keep posting on your stories, and, just tell one friend. Just tell one friend about it. That's all I ask. And keep leaving the reviews and the star ratings, hopefully 5. But be honest, if it's shitty, let me know. But whatever. And also, one quick announcement as well before we dig in here. Theme music. If anybody knows a producer of some sort or can produce beats on their own, I'd like a beat for this podcast and maybe even one for my YouTube channel. So get in contact with me and we can work something out. But yeah, that's all I got for opening announcements. Let's just dig in. First segment I'm going to talk about is my top 5 movies of 2019 so far. So up until today, these are my top 5 favorite movies of the year. 2019 as a whole has been an interesting year for movies. It's been pretty disappointing. I mean, the summer movie season has been very disappointing with a lot of movies that had potential or had big names behind them and just didn't deliver. So it was kind of hard for me to find 5 that I was really comfortable with. But then as I really started to think about it, I was like, okay, yeah, these 5 are definitely the best. But before we get into those 5, I'm going to read off a couple of honorable mentions. The first honorable mention is Spider-Man Far From Home, then Shazam, and then finally Godzilla King of the Monsters. These 3 films are all pretty fun. Spider-Man I thought was good, had some good parts, just was not, it was probably the closest to making this top 5, but just couldn't make it. Shazam was a fun movie. I never got to review it, but it was fun. I thought it was okay. I didn't love it, didn't hate it. And then Godzilla King of the Monsters was the first movie I ever reviewed on YouTube, and I remember just being kind of underwhelmed, but I thought it was fine. I still gave it a positive grade. So, those are my honorable mentions. Let's get on to my top 5 now. These are my top 5 favorite movies of 2019 up to this point. Since we're at the halfway point, I'm doing half of 10. So at the end of the year, I'll do a top 10 list. So be on the lookout for that. But here we go. Number 5 on my list is Ari Aster's Midsummer. This movie that just recently came out. It is incredibly dark and disturbing, but very gripping and pretty to look at. So it was definitely one that I would say was a positive experience walking out. I really enjoyed the movie. I still think I like Ari Aster's Hereditary better than Midsummer. Midsummer does kind of have some pacing issues, and some of the early storylines that they set up are not really fulfilled the way that I felt like they should have been, and they kind of left some stones unturned. But other than that, I thought this movie was really well made and really well acted, and it just is definitely a slow burn, and it isn't everybody's cup of tea, so that's why it's at my number 5 spot. And I also have a review for this one as well, so if you want to check that out, go ahead and do that. Then we got at number 4 on my list is Jordan Peele's Us. I saw this movie earlier on this year. It came out in, I think, early February or January. It was one of those horror movies. Again, Jordan Peele had Get Out a year or 2 ago that came out in the early part of the year. So this is kind of following that trend. And this movie I thought was really, really good. I thought all of the scenes with, these doppelgangers interacting with their, I guess, ground level counterparts was really interesting. And I think that the dynamic that they set up there and what Jordan Peele is trying to say is definitely clear. And obviously the F the police scene was definitely a highlight for that movie. So, another really good movie for Jordan Peele. I thought this one was a little bit more disturbing and scary than Get Out, even though I think Get Out is a better story, and I still really love Us. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. My number 3 spot, I have Toy Story 4, the 4th sequel in the Toy Story franchise. I reviewed this one a couple weeks ago, and I really, really enjoyed this movie. And now that I've had some time to think on it, I still really enjoy it. Some of the decisions they make towards the end of the movie are ballsy, and but I just think that I don't know where they're going to take this from here. And this is definitely one of the weaker movies in the franchise. It may be the weakest one of the four. But it's not to say it's a bad movie. It has really, really good humor, some good moments, some good side characters, Keanu Reeves and Key and Peele, and some really good performances there. They build upon these characters, and I love the original Toy Story movie so much that this one would have really had to suck in order for me not to love it. And this movie definitely delivers. It's not as good as the first three, but it definitely is still pretty solid. My number 2 is the Elton John biopic, Rocket Man, which was my second review on YouTube. And I really enjoyed this movie. I thought that it did a really good job of diving into Elton John's success story and his, mental mind state at certain periods in his life, and then how he was able to deal with his addictions and being one of the biggest stars on the planet, how that can kind of take a toll on somebody's psyche, and having everybody love you can be also kind of taxing towards yourself. And obviously he wasn't always loved, and I think that feeling of loneliness definitely overwhelmed him, and I love how they kind of really elaborated on that in the movie. And so for that, I thought Rocketman was really, really good. Looking back, it definitely climbed to my number 2 spot. I think that just for the song and dance sequences were all really good. The performances, Taron Egerton is great as Elton John. Definitely one of the better performances I saw this year. And I really love this movie. So I'm very excited to see what the director Dexter Fletcher does next, because hopefully it's not another one of these rock and roll biopics. Hopefully he goes and does something else. But I still do really like Rocket Man. It's got a lot of good moments. And my number 2. So then we get to my number 1. I think this one is pretty much a guarantee. It's Avengers Endgame. I wish I was on YouTube to review this at the time, but I wasn't. So I'm going to kind of elaborate here on what I really think of the movie. And I don't know if I'm going to spoil anything. I guess I will. Spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Avengers Endgame, you've probably been living under a rock or don't care. So if you don't care about spoilers or you've already seen it, listen up. But quick little spoilers. I won't go too deep, but the movie's great. I loved the way they ended everything, tying a nice bow on this franchise, and then the stuff with Captain America and Tony Stark and all that was really, really well handled. And the action sequences are just epic and really well done. The visuals in here are just about as good as Marvel has done, and they just keep upping the game. And I'm very interested to see the new direction that this franchise goes in, especially after Spider-Man. But obviously there's just so many memorable moments in this movie. I love the whole thing of them having to go back in time. I thought that was just such a great idea of having them go back in time and like relive moments throughout the franchise that we loved, like going to the first Avengers movie and Captain America fighting Captain America was a great moment. And obviously the giant war at the end where everybody comes through and comes together, and you have that great chase sequence with all the characters passing the Infinity Gauntlet to each other, which was a really fun moment to get all the characters involved. And that's the thing the Russo brothers did a really good job of throughout these movies, is just being able to juggle all the characters that were on their plate. So for that, I thought they did a really great job, and just an amazing universe that they were able to create. And now everybody's trying to copy what they did. And now the movie, I have not seen the movie again. I've only seen it one time, and it's my favorite movie of the year, which is kind of surprising, but I will definitely be seeing it again when the extended version of the movie releases, and maybe I'll give a short bit of thoughts on it. Nothing too deep, but maybe I'll give a couple thoughts on that. So definitely something to look out for. I don't know. We'll see. But back to this movie, it's great. I loved it, and the action, the emotion, then obviously at the end, the stuff with Thanos, and I love how Thanos just kind of is like, screw it, I'm just gonna kill everybody because I obviously succeed and then fail. So after my success, so now I just kind of just go ham on everybody, screw it, which I liked, and then obviously Tony Stark getting all the Infinity Stones at the end and snapping Thanos out of existence was a really, really awesome moment. And then the ending with Cap, like I said, was so emotional and so well done. And yeah, great movie. Great movie. So, yeah, that's it for my mid-year list. I will have a top 10 movies of the year list, and this list could be completely different. And it most likely will be because there's still hopefully some better movies to come because 2019 has been a disappointing year for movies. I mean, just look at the box office. These movies are not making as much money as they should. A lot of them are. Some of them are even losing money. So it's just a matter of, can you tell a story that keeps me interested for longer than 30 minutes? That's really the criteria for a lot of these summer movies, and a lot of them are not hitting the mark. So um, I'm very interested to see what the rest of 2019 looks like. Um, and yeah, I'll be revisiting these movies in December. So now we move on to my top 5 albums of 2019 so far. So as for music, it's been a little bit better of a year than movies. There is some pretty good albums that came out this year that I've listened to. And as you hear these lists and as you hear more of me talk about what I'm listening to and what I'm watching, you'll start to get a feel for my taste on music, and maybe it reflects yours, maybe it doesn't. But if it doesn't, let me know what you like. Let me know what I missed. Same for the movies part. But let's get into honorable mentions. First honorable mention is Tritonal's You and Me, one of my favorite EDM and progressive house projects of the year. A lot of fun, really upbeat. Ariana Grande's Thank You Next was a good honorable mention for me. I thought this project was fine. I thought it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, that's for sure. And I thought there was some really good moments and a lot of vulnerability shown by Ariana. So very interesting stuff there. Then you get YG's For Real, which was kind of a return to form for YG after his album a year ago, Stay Dangerous, which I thought was just really bad. And Still Brazy is one of my favorite albums of the decade. I mean, that is just full of West Coast bangers, and I think that this project definitely gets back to that, so I like this one. Tyler, the Creator's Igor, which was one of the most creative projects I've heard, especially from a production standpoint. Tyler's producing has gotten so much stronger and so much more adventurous, and this project has a lot of different stuff, a lot of rapping, a lot of singing, a lot of harmonizing, and really, really good stuff from Tyler. Not as good as Flower Boy, but I still like it. Anderson .Paak's Ventura is the next one. This was definitely a step up from Oxnard. I wasn't a huge fan of that project, but I did love Malibu. Malibu is still my favorite Anderson .Paak project. I still listen to that project to this day. Just great stuff on there. But this one was really good. Has a good Andre 3000 feature. The Make It Better with Smokey Robinson is a really good one, so that's definitely a good honorable mention. And then lastly, Smith & Wesson's The All, which is just a boom bap rap project. If you like kind of New York sounding rap, there's some really pretty beats on here. From I think Ninth Wonder does a couple of these beats. Two standout tracks are Dreamland and Ocean Drive. I still like those tracks a lot, so check that one out if you haven't already. Anyway, on to my top 5. Here we go. At number 5 on my top 5 albums of 2019 so far, we have Boogie's Everything's for Sale. Boogie is a rapper that was signed to Eminem's label, and didn't really hear anything about this guy, and then started hearing some buzz about this project. It came out early this year, and this project really blew me away with the production and Boogie's pretty decent singing voice on some of these more melodic tracks like Skydive and Silent Ride. But then you also have some good rapping from him. I like the track Self-Destruction. I think that one's kind of a fun banger. And then obviously the track Rainy Days with Eminem is another standout. So definitely a really good project from Boogie. I never heard of this guy before, and I'm very excited to see what he does next. So, yeah, definitely one to look out for. At number 4, my only EDM project that made my top 5, and that's Marshmello's Joytime 3. This is a new release that came out, I think a week or two ago, and I've been listening to this thing way more than I should be for the past week. And for it to come out this recent and for me to already put it in my top 5 shows you how much I enjoyed this project. And I, for one, am not a big Marshmello fan. I think he's fine. I think he's kind of hit or miss. And the first two Joytime projects were fun and had some good moments, but I just felt like he could have been a little bit more experimental, and this project is that. This project is what I wanted Joy Times 1 and 2 to be. And although those have some really great tracks on there, like Summer and Keep It Mellow and some of the other ones from Joy Time 2 that were really good, but this project definitely shows Marshmello's flexibility more than anything that he's done in the past. I like my favorite tracks on there. Put Your Hands Up with Slushy, which is just a nasty dubstep banger. And then you get Set Me Free with Bellacore, which is this house, just straight house track, which I'm a big house music fan, so it's totally up my alley. Room to Fall with Flux Pavilion and Elohim. Really good stuff there. Earthquake with Tainan. This is just a nasty, nasty banger as well. And then Proud is just that traditional Marshmello that we all love. And this project gives you a little bit of everything from Marshmello, and that's what I really liked about it. It doesn't really take itself too seriously, and it's having fun. And I like these kind of projects where some of these producers just kind of go out of their comfort zone. And every time that Marshmello has gone out of his comfort zone, I haven't said that I wouldn't say I loved everything that Marshmello has done in the past couple of years, but overall, I thought this project was pretty solid, honestly, and really showed some range. So definitely want to look out for it. Then we got number 3, 2 Chainz, Rap or Go to the League. This project surprised me with how much I've listened to this since it came out, and earlier this year. I love the track Threat to Society. That one, just love that Ninth Wonder beat. I think that 2 Chainz needs to rap on these kind of beats more. And then that banger Whip with Travis Scott, which is probably one of the best hooks Travis Scott has been on this year, because he's been on some rough ones for sure. But this one, actually, I think he sounds good on. NCAA, where we get some criticism about NCAA players and kind of going into the theme of the album, which is where, you either rap or go to the league. And I think that 2 Chainz is kind of giving his 2 cents on the NCAA and how they kind of are ripping off players, which, there's an argument to be had for both sides, so that's for another time. But then you get Rule the World with Ariana Grande, which is a fun track as well. And then, obviously, and give you a little bit of star power in there for 2 Chainz. And then Sam, which is one of my favorite songs on this project, where 2 Chainz kind of breaks down the tax situation in America and how, tax brackets are kind of unfair, and how the government is taking large chunks of his money, and it's an interesting look at what these famous celebrities deal with when it comes to how much money they actually generate from what they're doing, and how much of that money they actually get to keep, which is something that I've always been kind of interested in. So definitely some good stuff there. But that project's really good. It ended up making my top 3 for this half year point, and I hope it makes my top 10. Then we get at number 2, a project probably nobody's heard, Benny the Butcher's The Plugs I've Met. If you like just gritty street rap, this is for you. With some really good production on here and some good quotable bars. This is definitely for you. My favorite tracks on here, pretty much all these tracks are really good, but my 3 favorite would probably be Crown for Kings, Sunday School, which has a incredible line from 38 Special where he says, I got the lamb and the stick like I'm coming out the Bible, and I thought that was just so incredible. And then you get 18 Wheeler, which is just some good old coke rap with the legend Pusha T, which, he's had a great start to this year and a great last year as well. So shout out to Pusha T. But this project was kind of went under the radar. Benny the Butcher is kind of an up-and-comer, but he definitely is very gritty. And if you like that kind of sound and a lot of street and drug rap and that kind of stuff, it's definitely for you. But if not, then, whatever. But then we get to my number 1 album of the year, and it's pretty obvious if you have been paying attention to my channel over the past week, and that's Freddie Gibbs and Madlib's Bandana. Yeah, this is hands down the best project that came out this year. Everything from just the diversity of this project and to how but yet how cohesive it is, and um, all the different types of production on here from Madlib. It's all over the place, and but it's so works so well together and flows so well. And then Freddie on here is really the star of this project. I felt like Madlib was more of the star of Pinata, and this one, uh, Freddie Gibbs is the star, and he is flowing all over these crazy beats. And I haven't been able to get enough of this project, honestly. I've been listening to it more than I think I've listened to anything this year, and it literally came out like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I can't stop listening to it. Obviously, my favorite tracks, like I mentioned in the video in my review, are Half Main, Half Cocaine, Practice, Situations, Fake Names, and Palmolive. Those were my favorites, and they still are. But yeah, this was hands down the best project. Just so much there, and I've already said enough about it, so that's that. But yeah, a really interesting year for rap and music in general. Some good projects, but hopefully there's some better ones still to come. I kind of wanted a little bit more from this year. There's not, other than Bandana, there hasn't been another project this year that I can genuinely say was just great. And there's a lot of good, but nothing that's been blowing my mind. And I still got to expand my range. Maybe there are some and I just haven't found them, but you know how it is. There's only a certain amount of time in the day. But now let's move on to my final topic of the day, Stranger Things Season 3. First thing we're going to say here is if you haven't seen Stranger Things, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of a crash course into the show before I actually go into Season 3, and that will be spoiler-filled. So this is not a spoiler section yet, so if you haven't seen Stranger Things or you're watching it, you can still listen to this part, and I'll give you the warning when I get into the spoilers. So this show, if you haven't seen it, it's one of the most original shows on TV right now. I really enjoy what they've been doing with this show over the past couple of years, and it's honestly becoming, if not my favorite, I think it's probably the best thing that Netflix has ever made, honestly, as far as shows go. I mean, just the story, the characters, they're all so likable. And if you haven't seen this show, it's basically about a bunch of kids growing up in the 1980s, and they come across some supernatural aliens and things. I wouldn't say aliens, but like supernatural presences that take over and manifest in our world. So I thought that was, I think it's just a really creative and unique show, and it's definitely very nostalgic of the 80s. So if you love the 1980s, this is totally the show for you. You definitely get that feel of like some of those old 80s movies starring, the kids, and they're in some sort of bind, like the Goonies and Lost Boys or whatever, and all those kind of movies. Like, this is kind of in the same vein as that. In the sense that it's a bunch of kids having to deal with some sort of existential crisis. But the show just really, from the start of it, I was just kind of like, okay, where's this going? But then once I got through, about halfway through season 1, I was pretty hooked on this thing. And they're very easy to watch. Each season has about 8 episodes. They're about an hour long. So it's not too taxing of a show. But I really enjoyed this show a lot. And as it keeps going and going, it just gets more and more entertaining, and as they put more and more characters into this show, they become a lot more compelling to watch. So definitely, if you have not checked out Stranger Things and you think it's something for you, I definitely say you check it out. And if not, just watch the first couple episodes, and if it's not for you, then don't watch it. If it is, then be prepared to listen to this last section, because here we go. We're going to talk about Stranger Things Season 3. So if you have not seen it all the way through, let's just say you're halfway through it, or you stopped watching it, or you never even started it, go watch the show, catch up, and then come check this part out. Pause right here and then go check it out. Or if you just don't care about spoilers, you can stay, or if you've seen the show, you can stay. So it just depends, on what you're feeling. If you don't really care or you've seen it, stay. If not, don't. But yeah, this is the last spoiler warning, and then we're going to get into it. So 3, 2, 1. Yeah, this season was great. Let me give you a little bit of background on the first 2 seasons before I get into this, spoiler-wise. The first season I love. I still think it's really great. Definitely it does a great job of getting you into this universe and getting you to care. Um, and then the second season has some really great moments, but definitely was kind of a letdown. It has some episodes that don't really do anything for me. One of them being the Lost Sister. I just thought this episode was so out of place and very just uninteresting, and it kind of put a damper on the season. But I thought the season ended really really well and was really interesting. Um, so going into this season, I had just some expectations of just like I want to see different characters interacting with each other, and I want to just you know see what they got to offer. And man, do they have a lot because this show really picks up in this season. The first couple episodes I actually really enjoy because you really get some downtime with these characters to really see what they're about and see what they've been up to for what seems like forever since we've seen them on screen. And we get some great uh, moments like 11 and Max going shopping, and then you get Dustin intercepting the Russian broadcast, and all of that stuff is really interesting. And all the new storylines, the Nancy and Jonathan storyline, all of it is really interesting, and you can just tell that they all converge. Like that's usually how it works, is that with Stranger Things, is that you get all these different storylines and they all lead to the same thing, and they all converge at this same issue. And I love, when shows have that happen where all the characters just meet up and then solve the problem together. And this show obviously has done that in the past and has gotten kind of flack for doing the same thing over and over again. But I felt like this one, although it does kind of share some of the same qualities as the first two seasons, I definitely thought the stakes and some of the character relationships were a lot more compelling in this season. And especially the ones with Hopper and Joyce and 11, Mike, and 11 and Billy, which we'll talk about Billy, and then obviously between the boys as well, and then Steve and Dustin and Robin, their whole storyline is really great. So there's a lot of really good stuff here as far as relationships. I mean, Hopper and Joyce, their whole storyline was really, really good, of basically having to lug around that Russian scientist or whatever who tells him basically about the base and then the weapon that's opening the door, and you really start to get this thing of, I love how this show really goes into these villains of being Russians, the Russian villains. I love how that stereotype is brought up again in these movies, because that was like a big stereotype in the 80s because of Cold War and everything. It was Russians are the villains of like pretty much every show, just kind of like how World War II things are always Nazi or the villains, because it's like just pitting them as villains is always really nostalgic. So I liked that aspect. But yeah, and then you get 11 and Mike. I love their whole storyline and how they kind of are struggling to keep a relationship because Mike just doesn't want to see 11 be in danger, but she ends up putting herself in a lot of danger. But yeah, this show just has a lot of really great relationships. The villains, you got the a-hole mayor, you got Billy, who becomes basically consumed by the mind flayer and basically is the one taking all these characters and feeding them to the mind flayer. And I kind of liked how the mind flayer kind of manifests itself on Earth through like human consumption, which I thought was a really cool idea. Yeah, I definitely like that one a lot. Then you get Hopper's death at the end. Let's talk about the end of the season. Hopper's death was really shocking. But I definitely liked it because it adds a lot more stake to the show moving forward. And if you're going to make this kind of decision, you better stick with it. So, like, with Hopper dying, I'm fine with it. I mean, it sucked at the moment because he's, like, a fan favorite. Everybody loves him. But with him dying, you just kind of got to accept it as what it is. And I just kind of hope they stick to their guns at this point. Unless they have some sort of super creative and a real reason to bring Hopper back, I just think he should be dead at this point. Like, it worked so well for the story and was a really, really great moment. It was a great send-off for that character. But the end credits scene says that Hopper is still alive, so who really knows? But the Battle of Starcourt was obviously a great episode. And the tension in this show is so good. And I think my favorite episode of the season is probably the sauna test, where they lure Billy into the sauna to try and draw the mind flare out of him. I thought that was a really awesome part of that episode, and really gave some great tension. And then also the bite. That was another standout episode for me, watching Eleven get bit by the mind flayer. And you also get that really awesome sequence of the mind flayer. I don't know if that's in this episode or if it's in the last episode, but there's an episode. There's a moment where the mind flayer, the kids are all hiding in a store, and the mind flayer is like using its tentacles and like searching around trying to flay someone's mind, and they have to kind of like hide from it. It's kind of like the Jurassic Park Velociraptor scene. I really enjoyed that. I thought that was a really, really cool moment, and a standout. But the CG in this show looks really good. The visuals, obviously, the way that they're able to make these sets look like the 80s, the mall especially, was really impressive, and definitely stood out as really stepping up the production value here. I mean, they definitely had a bigger budget here, and I think that's kind of was their idea. It's like, we have a bigger budget, let's make a giant monster out of it and make this into kind of like a monster show. And I thought that was really a cool spin. But yeah, the show had a really great emotions throughout, really great emotional relationships. Even some of the side characters, like Alexei, the Russian scientist, was really interesting character, and a lot of these side characters are really, really interesting. And man, this show, especially at the end, is really emotional. I mean, Eleven reading the Hopper note was so well done, and then obviously the buyers moving out of their house at the end was emotional. So a lot of good stuff to follow up on in season 4. I really enjoyed this show, man. I really did, and this was definitely my favorite season so far. I thought it was super intense. The stakes were as high as they've ever been, and even though they do kind of repeat some story stuff here and there, I definitely still enjoyed this show a lot. And if you haven't seen it, well, then check it out. And even though I just spoiled the whole show for you, but yeah, I really definitely want to see what they do next, and looking forward. If they do bring Hopper back, they better have a really good reason for it, because like, I hate shows that kill off characters just for the sake to bring them back. It's like, if you're gonna kill somebody off, I feel like you just gotta let the punch roll out. And as bad as it sucks, because Hopper is like one of my favorite characters, it's just you got to do it as long as it services the story. Like, if they have a really great reason to bring him back, I'm not gonna be mad about it. But I don't know. I would like to see them have enough balls to keep it as it is. But we'll see. If they got something better up their sleeve, who am I to judge? But yeah, that's all I pretty much got to say about Stranger Things. It's a really good show, and I definitely think you should check it out. But yeah, that's all I got for today, pretty much. This was actually a pretty short one, too. It's only 30 minutes, so wow, I made good time. But thanks to everybody again for showing me so much love. Keep showing me love. Like I said, just share this with one friend. That's all I ask. One friend. Just keep doing what you guys are doing. Great stuff, people. And then also for guests, a lot of people have reached out to me for wanting to be a guest. For sure, if you guys got something interesting to say, then I would love to have some people on, because talking by myself is a lot less interesting than talking with somebody else. Definitely want to get some guests in here. As for YouTube updates, I have Revenge of the Dreamers review, probably should be out by now, if it's not already. So check that out. I did a review for Revenge of the Dreamers 3, the Dreamville compilation album. So check that out. And then I also have a review for Crawl and Stuber that are coming out this weekend. So I'll try and do one or two of those. I don't know. We'll see which ones I can get to. Definitely will at least do one of those two. Don't know if we'll get them both, but yeah, that's definitely something to look forward to. And yeah, I'm going to also have an NBA free agency podcast coming out, where I'm just going to basically break down everything from NBA free agency, because there's been a lot of drama that I've been wanting to talk about. But I just kind of wanted to make sure I had all the information together before I sat down and actually broke down who won and who lost free agency. So it's going to be more of like a winners and losers free agency. And I'm going to try and break down every team in the NBA, but I don't know if I can do them all. So we'll see. It would be a race against the clock, I guess. But yeah. Also, yeah, I got some other different segments coming up. So if none of these interest you, there will be more to come. So thanks everybody for listening and showing me love, and keep showing me love, keep spreading the word, and follow me on social media at TJ Martino on everything except for Instagram. It's TJ.Martino. Yeah, check out my YouTube channel if you don't already. I got reviews of stuff and a bunch of other stuff coming. So check me out, and it's great to be here and to the moon and back, baby. See ya.